Hello, hello, and welcome back to A Fool's Guide to Factorio. I apologize for the delay in this episode coming out. I've been waiting on a replacement microphone. I tried to record several times with my previous microphone, or my temporary microphone for a second episode, and it just simply did not work. I had to discard my second episode about 3 times because of it. Now, the goal in this episode, just to get you guys understood, is that now that we have basic power established like we did in episode 1, we have a power system here with some electric mining drills. The goal in this episode is to establish basic research, what you should do to start with research, as well as to get your first smelting system up and running. All right. And so to that regard, let's first look at this research tree. There are quite a few researches. So if you just hit the T hotkey, it brings up the research menu. The things in yellow are researches that you have available. Things in red are things that you have yet to unlock. So for example, if I want to research automation, it provides you with some piece of information. First, it takes 10 seconds for each red science pack, and it does this 10 times. So this total needs 10 red science packs. And if you do it with just one science lab, this will take 100 seconds. And then you can see the effects. It will give you assembly machine 1s, which you can use to automate production of certain materials or certain objects, as well as long-handed inserters. Now, if I wanted to do, let's say, electronics research, so I'm clicking on one of the red ones, you can't actually do it right now. If you look here on this tree, it shows you what you need to get it. So in this case, I need automation. If I want to choose something more complicated, like portable fusion reactors, you click on it, you realize you have to research all this to get that going. So this entire tree has to be full. For the rocket ship thing, you need to have this tech tree. All right. So it's relatively easy to see, and you can also do it in reverse. So if I click on the one here, I can see what it unlocks for me, and then it expands down from there. It's a fairly easy to understand system there. That menu at least makes some degree of sense. So now, in order to actually do research, you need 2 things. First, you need a science lab. So I'm going to start crafting one of those, and this is going to take a little bit of time. The other thing that you need are science packs. So if we look at this first research, automation, that I want to get done, what we need to do for that is we need, like I said, I need 10 science packs. So I'm going to just hit the research button. It's not going to research because I don't have a science lab or any science packs, but that is okay. So what we're going to start off with is crafting, like I said, the science lab, and then I'm going to throw in 10 science packs. Now this will take a fair bit of time to craft. And so in the meantime, I'm actually going to work on the other part of this episode, which is going to be clearing out some space for some smelting. So I'm going to be just cutting down a few trees. All right, and welcome back. So I just cleared out a bunch of the trees. While I was doing that, I also, if you were paying attention, I crafted an extra 10 science packs, because I was cutting down trees. So I figured I'd fill the time. All right, so what we're going to do is, like I said, we queued up automation earlier. So what you simply do is you get a science lab, and you need to connect it to power. So I put it here right next to my power system. And then I'm going to just put in my science packs. And as you can see now, this is slowly processing. So each science pack that it goes through takes 10 seconds. If you have multiple labs, it scales. So like if I had 5 labs, each one would only have to process 2 versus one lab having to process 10. So it would go 5 times as fast. That sort of thing. All right. Fairly simple, but important nonetheless. I'm going to throw a little bit of firewood in one of these drills just so I can keep producing copper plates and iron plates. Now the next step, that while this researches, what we're going to do is I'm going to start setting up the system that I want for producing automated mining. So remember how last episode, well, you might remember, we set up this electric mining drill system here, which produced us coal and put it on a belt towards the electricity generation system. Now what we want to do is we want to set up a lot of electric mining drills on this iron patch here. Sorry, this is not copper, in order to produce iron ore onto a belt, just like we did with the coal. So what you do is, if we look again at the mining drill, you have the green square around the mining drill, and that is where the mining drill will gather resources from. And you can take your pick on how you want to set them up. If you overlap green squares, it simply means they'll mine through it faster. You'll get the same total amount of resources, but it'll just be produced at a higher rate because you have a higher density of mining drills. Now, one thing that you really want to be cautious with, and I can't stress this enough, and this is particularly relevant given my map setup here. You see how we have this iron copper system here? If I set up a mining drill here, it's going to actually mine both iron and copper. And I don't want to mix that. It's strongly advised not to mix iron ore and copper ore on the same belt system. It's risky, I'll just put it that way. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to ignore that portion and make sure that I don't get any green boxes like here. I can't put a drill here that cover that region. All right, so let's see. Next row is going to go here. And we're going to just cover this. And I'm trying to basically cover as much of it as I can. Now, when you're placing mining drills, electric mining drills, remember they require power. So you want to make sure you leave a gap between your rows, like I did here, to run power lines through. So now that if I do this, and then we're going to come down here and we're going to hook it up to power, these guys are going to start producing. Not all of them because I haven't connected all of these over here yet, but they're going to produce, but they don't have any belts to dump it into yet. So, one step at a time. But now you can see our automation research finished. And automation is typically the first research you want to start. I will recommend the second research you want to do is logistics. But for me right now, for the sake of this tutorial, the second one I'm going to do is optics. And that is solely so you guys can see what's going on a lot better than if I just did logistics second. And I'm going to start crafting the science packs for the next research project. So what we're going to do is we're going to run the belts through here. And these are going to just collect the ores from the mining drills and bring them down here. All right. Now, I don't have quite enough belts to get this finished, but as you can see now, we have iron ore going onto a belt system, which is, well, pretty much what we want to have at the start. Now, additionally, what we need is we're going to need more stone to make more furnaces. So I'm going to run down to our stone patch that we set up previously, and I'm going to gather some stone down here. Because if you remember, we set up a burner mining drill to dump stone into a chest. And while I'm down here, I'm going to put more coal into the drill, so that just keeps going and going forever and ever. All right, so now what we can do is we look at what we have available to us. Like I said, so we crafted assembly machines. The assembly machine ones, or sorry, we researched assembly machines. We researched automation so we can make assembly machine ones. Now, assembly machine ones, they can craft items that require up to 2 ingredients. So what that means is if I look here, it can craft belts. Belts require an iron plate and an iron gear wheel. That's only 2 ingredients. Versus if you compare it to, let's say, a regular inserter, that requires a green circuit, an iron gear wheel, and an iron plate. So that's 3 ingredients. Even though the raw ingredients are only 2, 4 iron plates and 1.5 copper plates, the assembly machines will only craft the final stage. So the assembly machine will only craft the inserter. It will craft, well, let me phrase that. The assembly machine will craft 1 recipe. So it will craft an inserter if you give it a green circuit, an iron gear wheel, and an iron plate. It will not craft anything if you tell it to make an inserter and give it 4 iron plates and 1.5 copper plates. It's just an important thing to note with regards to that. So what we need to do is we need to craft just a few more belts. Okay, we're going to need to craft quite a few more belts. But in order to finish this system up. Now, there's going to be there's several ways to combine 2 belts. And I'm going to do this one temporarily, where basically I just have each half of this feed 1 half of the belt. There's something that we will research momentarily under logistics. It's called a splitter that is ideal for merging belts. But that's not what we're going to be using yet because I don't have it researched. But what I did research are light sources. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to grab some more copper, or iron plate, sorry. And I'm going to produce just a few more of these, so we can actually craft some of these lights. Lights will help you see at night, and in particular, it's very relevant when you are dealing with OBS, because OBS records very dark. Now, what we're going to also need to do is craft a bunch of furnaces, and this is going to be necessary for the automating of processing iron plates or generating iron plates. All right, So there are, as always, two schools of thoughts on how to set up a furnace system. And I personally have a favorite design. It's not necessarily the best design, but it's my personal favorite. And that's what I'm going to start with here as the first design, and then we will go forward into the second. All right. So what you're going to do is we're going to run here a line of belts. All right. Resources are going to come in along this belt. And what you want to do is you want to set up one side iron and one side coal. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fast forward for a little bit through this as I go ahead and set this system up. All right. What it's going to be is I'm going to be setting up a system which will take coal and bring it up north to here, as well as take the iron and set the belt simply up. And I'm going to fast forward to this because it will take me a while to craft all the necessary resources to do this. So what I did here is I ran two belts. This one we will take care of as soon as logistics research is done. We will put coal on this belt, and we have the iron ore coming in here. Now, this is, like I said, my version of this system, where if you put this belt here, you'll get coal or iron ore on one side, and the coal which will come in here will be dumped on the other side. And so you have one belt with half iron ore, half coal. Now, there's a few important things to note about my design, which is this one. I won't say I came up with it, but it's the one I like to use. And what that is that basically what you'll have is you'll use half of a belt in each of these. So what you want to do if you want to optimize this, all right, you'll have one belt, let's say, full of resources, which we don't produce it right now. But if we had one belt full of resources, you'd want to feed it into two of these systems. And we can do that using a logistics network or logistics information, which we will have momentarily. So once that research is done, we can go into that. Now, what it will require, hold on, is the use of splitters. Splitters are very convenient things that will take half of a belt and send it one way, and the other half of the belt and send it the other way. All right, so as soon as I have the copper here, I will show you, I'll demonstrate to you what I mean by that. There we go. Oh, wait, I need one more piece. There we go. All right. So we got the splitter being crafted, and we're going to demonstrate it down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this one segment here and clean up all the coal. All right. So now if I put a splitter here, what you will see is half the coal goes north, half the coal keeps going south. All right. And it will split evenly on either side. So like, although this one it perfectly balanced out, it will literally just take every other piece of coal that comes in here and send half of it north, half of it south. And if one of these sides becomes fully backed up, then it will just only send it north. Or to the other direction, let's put it that way. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and grab what's left of my resources. And we're going to set up a few extra lights up here because it is now nighttime. So now if you look here, we have a belt with coal on one side and iron ore on the other. Now, like I said, each of these takes up half of a belt of the resource. So in order to fully optimize or fully utilize it, you'll want to have two of these systems going for each solid belt of input iron ore that you have. Now, a solid belt can feed 48 furnaces. All right. Now, since this is a half belt system, so it uses half of a belt of each, we can do 24 furnaces along here. So now what we have is we have resources that come down the middle. And then what they will do is on either side, you have furnaces. So if I set up a system of inserters like this, what they will do is they will grab coal and iron, or coal and iron ore, and put them into the furnaces. And now the furnaces are producing iron plates. All right. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to set this up for every single one of these furnaces, the entire length down. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to craft the remaining belt pieces so I can finish the internal aspect of this system. And you want to make sure that you have your inserters pointing the right way, otherwise it won't work. So we'll get this set up. And so if we just hook this all up to power, as you can see, for those that have resources along the middle belt, we are now producing iron plates. Now that's pretty nice, right? especially in the early term, you now have 24 furnaces going versus the 5 starting that I had at the beginning. But as of right now, you still have all the resources sitting in the furnaces. So in order to get them out of the furnaces, what you do is you set up a similar belt system along the back. And I need to craft a few more belts for doing this. But you do is you just run belts along the back side. And you set up another set of inserters here, which will pull off of these furnaces the finished product and dump it onto a belt. And this way, at the end of the day, you have iron plates on a belt being produced by your furnace system, which is pretty great. That's really what you need to do in order to get started. But in order to actually fully use this system, I'm going to need to craft a few more resources. But what we're going to need to do is set up a beautiful way to combine. So we have currently harvesting iron plates on one side. As you notice, inserters will always put resources down on the far end of the belt. So all the resources that are being pulled out of here will be put on the far edge of the belt, and it will at most fill up half a belt. All right? Because, well, it only uses one side. So what we can do is we can simply do another combining system here, like I did before. And let's see, we don't need any more of these, so I'm just going to kill the rest of that for now and craft a few more belts. So first we're going to set this up with the inserters. So that way we will actually pull resources on both sides. And I'm going to just put a light source in here. That way we have some light when night falls. Alright, now if we want to combine the two belts, the easiest way of doing it, because of the symmetry here, and that's the important part, the two belts should be symmetric. You should have equal amount of resources coming out of each side because they pull from a single belt, and you have the same number of furnaces. So if you can set up a belt like here, and you will get resources from either side coming down onto this belt. Now this, when it's running at saturation, when it's running continuously, this will fill up half of the belt. Because remember, this system will only pull in a half belt worth of resources. And it's a 1-to-1 ratio of iron ore to iron plates. So if you are actually doing this as a proper system, you want to duplicate this so that way you have two of these going. And I'm going to go ahead and do that, and I will probably cut away to the duplicated system. Just so you can see the finalized form of that. All right, and welcome back. So what we need to do here is I've duplicated this system right here next to it. All right, now what we need to do is we need to go ahead and get half of each of these lines to go over here. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a couple of splitters, one here and one here. All right, and so what we're going to have is we have coal coming in along here, and we're going to have iron ore coming in here. All right, now the iron ore is just going to come straight up here like this. And the coal, we use something called an underground belt. These are very, very useful things. You're going to need a lot of them in your factory. And what we're going to do is we're going to use it to get the coal underneath this belt here. And so then we can pull it up north towards here. All right, and then if I run this through, this will now, if we produced enough iron ore and coal, would give you one solid belt worth of iron ore consumption. Now, in order to combine the outputs, what you really want to do is you want to get a system set up like this, where you go ahead and you combine it like this. So, because each one of these systems should produce a half of a solid belt worth of resources, and this should be completely balanced. The other way of doing it, of course, if you don't want to use the half and half system, just in case one system goes down for some reason, you can do this as well. And then you just have only one output come here, and you'll take two inputs and have it come out as one output. But with this now, you have an automated system which will produce coal, produce iron ore, and turn it into iron plates. Now you can duplicate this for copper plates by simply, well, making the exact same setup that we have up here over for copper. Now, in order to actually run this properly and fully, you're going to need quite a few more electric mining drills, and quite a few more electric mining drills on iron ore, and quite a few electric mining drills added in to the coal system. But I think this is where we're going to call it an episode for today. Between this and the next episode, I am going to establish properly fill up the iron ore patch up here as well as the coal patch down south. And what we're going to do is I'm going to set up the copper ore system. So we have a similar system like we have here to iron. We will have with copper. Now, I mentioned, by the way, before I call this an episode, that there are two schools of thoughts. All right. The one I have here are two design principles for iron plate production and copper plate production. The one I have here takes up more space horizontally. All right. And it has the resource come down the center path and go out along the outside edges. Now, in the way that a lot of people like to do is it's actually basically inverted. So you have resources, they come in along the outer path, so along this belt essentially, all right? And they get, the finished resource comes down along the center path. Now you can do this way, and that allows you to take one full patch of copper, or of iron ore and coal, and set it into one belt system. Because you take one full thing here, and you set up with splitters to have it go around the outside edges. But in order to actually fully utilize that, though, you need to make it twice as long. So basically, the design comparison is twice as long, and half as wide, or twice as wide and half as long. And I'll show you in a moment a cutaway to right next to it, the system as set up in the other school of thought. What I've done here is I've set up the system here on the right for copper, and this is using the other school of thought when it comes to furnace designs. Basically, this school of thought is you take 2 rows of 24 furnaces versus 4 rows of 12. The important thing to note is that this is still 48 total furnaces. Now, the key difference as to why you can run 24 furnaces like this, or 48 furnaces in a single system like this, compared to 2 systems of 24, comes down to this region here, all right? And in this region here, what you set up is you have a pair of splitters, all right, facing in opposite directions with an underground belt coming in here. So if I go ahead and plug the coal into the underground belt, what's going to happen is it's going to come in here into the splitter, and half of it's going to go left and half of it's going to go right. And the same will happen with the iron ore. So if I plug an iron ore here, you get half iron ore going left, half the iron ore going right. Now, unlike the system we have here for the iron ore, copper ore go left, copper ore going right. Unlike the system we have here for the iron ore, you had the resources coming down the middle and the finished products on the outside edge. This is the inversion of that system. So you have the unfinished resources, the raw resources coming down the edges, and the finished resources coming out in the center. Now, the real only difference between the school of thought is, or the why you might want to choose one over the other, is simply space. All right. If you have a lot of space going radially away from your ore production so that you can set them up nice and long this way, then you can use this school of thought. If you have a lot of space, let's say this direction, and you want to be using as much of the space up here for other things, you can use this wider school of thought. So it's twice as wide, but half as long. Either way, the system will produce you a full solid belt of whatever resource it is, as long as you give it a full solid belt worth as input. So if each of these have a full solid belt worth of corresponding ore, then they'll each produce a solid output of that corresponding ore. For me, I personally prefer the one here on the left, just because it seems to be slightly more compact, at least on some fundamental level, and you can actually make it slightly narrower by getting rid of one of these belts and having this system output on the other side of this belt. But that's a level of optimization that you don't necessarily need to do. But thank you very much for watching. In the next episode, I'm going to focus on the basics of automated crafting. So up until this point, we've been crafting everything in our inventory. And what we're going to set up in the next episode is assembly machines to actually produce resources, as well as getting science automated. All right. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.